Everyone, and welcome to this Development Standards Committee meeting on September. Can we start the live stream, please? Well, just before we start today's committee proceedings, this is the first Development Standards meeting since the sad announcement of the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So as of now, I'd like to ask everyone to join me in a minute's silence before we start proceedings, commencing now. Thank you, everyone. Say the Queen is dead, God save the King. We'll start with our meeting now, thank you. Sarah, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Convener, we have an apology from Councillor Beattie.
Thank you very much. Have any members any declarations this morning? No declarations? Okay, we'll move on. Agenda item 3, building warrants. The committee is asked to note that during the period 6th of August to 2nd of September 2022, a total of 45 building warrants, 1 demolition warrant and 13 amendment to warrants have been approved with an estimated cost of £6,406,375. Is this noted?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, delegated decisions. The committee is asked to note that during the period 6th of August to 2nd September 2022, a total of 51 planning applications have been approved and 1 refused under the scheme of delegation to officers. Again, is this noted?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Okay, the minutes of the previous meeting on the 16th of August 2022. Has anyone any comments on these or notes or amendment to them, or are they agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. Agenda item 6 is membership of the Development Management Review Committee. You have the report 315 of week 22 in front of you. As you can see there, we have to consider and note the current composition of the council and the balance, the current membership of the DMRC, whether any changes are required, and if required, to appoint 1 non-aligned member if that is to be agreed. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions on the paper. It seems fairly clear to me. We know the makeup of the DMRC as it stands at the moment. I think the main thing I want to ask on this, first of all, is Councillor Dornan, as the non-aligned member of the committee, have you any interest in joining the Development Management Review Committee at this stage?
Yes, I would be interested in joining the committee.
Okay, it's fine. It does allow for 1 member to join for political balance. Has anyone any comments on this at all at the moment? Are we happy to go with this and recommend approval for the DMRC to be increased to 6 members? Is that agreed?
Agreed. Agreed.
Good, thank you very much for that. Straightforward. Right, we can move on. Agenda item 7 today is report 316 of week 22, which is a planning appeal decision on land northeast of Garth Farm, Kirriemuir Road at Forfar. Alan, are you there? Do you want to just comment on this at all just now?
Happy. I do have some slides which I'll perhaps share, just as this was a non-determination appeal, so it's a matter of the committee. So just to give some context, I'll run through a couple of slides and perhaps pick out a couple of key issues which will be relevant in terms of future decision making of the committee and of officers. As you've indicated, this relates to an appeal at Forfar. So we have the local plan extract map and the appeal site located just in the northern extent. So just round about the area highlighted by the cursor on the screen at the moment. Red line site and a housing development in largely a perimeter block format, 245 houses, using round about 28 hectares of prime agricultural land. Development boundary, as identified by the local plan, runs down the eastern extent of the application site. So this was development out with, but immediately adjacent to the development boundary of the town. And our policies indicate that development in such circumstances is generally undesirable, except where it's in the public interest. And the report from the appeal reporter sets out very clearly his thoughts in relation to the principle of development on the site. But as I say, there are a couple of issues that I'd like to pull out from that decision, just to give some context and some information to elected members. In particular, we have the A90 located to the west of the site, and there were a number of properties, particularly on the western boundary, where properties would only achieve normal noise levels by keeping windows closed. And similarly, there were some properties where noise levels within garden areas would exceed normal levels. And you'll see from paragraph 50 of the reporter's decision that he's agreed with the council that relying upon windows being shut to achieve normal noise levels on large greenfield sites is not desirable. Proposals should be designed to avoid that type of mitigation. There may be circumstances within towns on brownfield sites where a windows closed approach is necessary, but in general terms, on large greenfield sites, proposals should be designed such that people enjoy a high level of residential amenity. The other point I'd like to pick out is in relation to the design of the proposal. And this is another decision following on from the Gowan Bank appeal decision, also in Forfar, where reporters have attached a high degree of weight to the council's supplementary guidance that deals with design quality and placemaking, and in particular the desire to see outward facing perimeter block style development. So just looking at the layout here, you can see some of the houses follow a perimeter block arrangement where the houses address the streets, houses look out onto open space areas, and that's very much what the council's policies are seeking to achieve, to make places distinctive, to make them welcoming, and to make them safe and pleasant. But there are also a significant number of properties, particularly on the periphery of the site, so down the western boundary, southern boundary, and on the eastern boundary, where it would be the rear gardens, the rear elevations of houses that would front onto public areas. And the reporter agreed with the council, agreed that our design quality and placemaking supplementary guidance doesn't support that type of development. And those were key issues in terms of the reporter's decision to dismiss the appeal. But in very general terms, the concerns raised by the reporter in relation to noise, the concerns in relation to design quality and layout are matters that support our policy approach and support our policies that seek to make sure that our places are welcoming and safe and pleasant places for people to live. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks, Alan. Just on that brief presentation presentation. Has any of our members got any questions for the Council Officer? Councillor Durno?
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Alan. The question about the noise from the traffic, obviously my ward in Verkeeler has the railway bridge, and it also has the A90 right next to it, and they have the massive green bun between themselves and the traffic. Why is it not possible to have the same bun put in this development? Because obviously the same situation's there.
So I think there are a range of mitigation approaches that could be utilised in relation to any site. I think the issues that the reporter considered are set out in the papers before you, and I think his general view was that high fencing or high buns in that location weren't particularly appropriate in landscape terms. And even with the provision of that mitigation, there was still the requirement for the windows closed approach. Now, there probably are circumstances throughout Angus where decisions have been taken, where noise levels maybe only can be achieved through a windows closed approach. But I think what we take from this is that on large greenfield sites, relying upon people having to close their windows to achieve acceptable internal noise levels is not something we should generally support.
Could I just come back and with that is also that obviously with cars in the future are obviously going to be more electric, so we're not going to have the same volume of car noise in the future that we'll have now. So that's just another point. Thank you.
I think just to come back on to Councillor Dunn as well, we could probably bring up a lot of these points also when we start to talk about the planning item 10 as well on the planning application notice. Councillor Braze?
Yes, thanks, Convener, and thanks, Alan, for your presentation there. Because this is a public meeting, I wondered if you could have given us a very brief synopsis of in layperson's terms of just what non-determination appeal is about. How did it come about? Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Braze. This particular planning application was submitted in, I think, around about the middle of November 2021. And typically for a major development, the council has a period of 4 months to make a determination. That can be extended. We often enter into processing agreements with developers to allow for extended period to allow potential issues to be addressed and worked through. In this particular case, we got to round about the middle end of February, and it was clear there were a number of fairly significant issues in relation to the application. We had objection from SEPA, who had raised concerns regarding flood risk. We had the issues that had been raised by our environmental health colleagues regarding the noise issues, the noise information, the noise mitigation that was proposed. And we invited the applicant to enter into a processing agreement for an extended determination period. And as is their entitlement, the applicant declined that request, indicating they were keen to work with us to resolve the issues. Mindful at that time, the local government elections were taking place. Actually, achieving a committee date to allow determination of the application was challenging. And at the end of March, the applicant submitted an appeal to Scottish Government. So if we don't determine the application within the statutory 4-month period, in this case, the applicant can appeal to Scottish ministers, and that's regarded as a deemed refusal. The non-determination is regarded as a deemed refusal. And that's essentially the circumstance we were in this case. So our failure to determine it was a consequence of objections from a range of bodies that were unresolved, and difficulty in terms of progressing that to determination at a time when council was not meeting because of the local government elections. I hope that provides context.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, thank you both, and thanks, Kenny. Just, I think you're right. We've got to remind ourselves that not only are we new elected members on this committee, we might not know that, but also the public. We need to keep them aware as well. So thanks for reminding us that. If we can move on.
Sorry, convener, my hand raising functionality doesn't seem to be working.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I had a question for Mr. Hunter as well. Really, just to tease out, I think another reason for the reporter finding against this application. Just correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding, this is because the sort of houses were going to be built on a ridge, and that would sort of change the outlook of Forfar and would be visible from the Forfar Country Park area. Is that your understanding, Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Councillor Duff. And yes, I think there are a range of issues that the reporter identified. Clearly, for the purposes of the presentation, I've pulled out a couple which I think are relevant in terms of future decision making for all applications going forward. In terms of the reporter's decision, the reporter was concerned, shared the council's concern really regarding potential impact of the development on Forfar Loch Country Park. Country Park is an important landscape recreational feature for the town, and the southern part of the site in particular is on elevated land. The reporter assessed that houses would be visible above the ridge at that point, and notwithstanding any landscaping or tree planting that would take place as mitigation, that impact was not something that he considered to be desirable. So yes, you're absolutely right, Councillor Duff.
That's Councillor Clark. Go ahead.
Thank you, convener. Just interested to hear what people say. As far as I'm concerned, a greenfield site is something as a local member, I would be concerned with. I don't labour too much on that, but you know, that to me would be something that I would be really upset about.
Okay, thank you. Point noted. Okay, that's questions. Is anybody any other comments other than that, other than we've heard already? If not, then is the outcome of the appeal noted by the committee?
Noted.
Noted.
Thank you very much, everyone. As I think all members of the committee know, agenda item 8, report 317 of Leak 22 has been withdrawn from today's meeting. So we'll move on to agenda item 9, which is a proposal of application notice, field 196 metres northwest of Wellbank Farm and Wellbank. And I think we'll hand over to Steph Porter.
Yeah, thank you, convener. So the next two items relate to proposal of application notices. As members are aware, the purpose of these notices is to give an intimation of the developer's intent to submit a major planning application. I'll just pull up the. You see these, fine, right? Okay. So at this stage, members are reminded that we aren't discussing the merits of the development at this stage. We're simply inviting members to identify any issues which they'd like to see addressed as part of any subsequent planning application beyond those identified by officers in the committee reports before you. So item 9, that relates to the installation of a 35 megawatt solar array on roughly 45 hectares of land. The land consists of a mix of farmland and woodland, and it's located roughly 200 metres north and just over 3 kilometres west of Miniki Country Park. This slide here, I've roughly outlined the site in pink, and it just gives you a locational context. And you can see Miniki to the east here, Wellbank to the southeast, and the A90 is indicated by the thick green line to the west. So in line with current legislation, cannot be submitted prior to the 26th of October. So this slide here is the submitted site location plan. Just gives you a bit more detail of the surrounding area, and as you can see, again, Wellbank to the southeast here, and a couple of the local roads surrounding the site. So as members will be aware, relevant policies are generally supportive of renewable and low carbon energy developments, where they wouldn't result in any unwanted impact upon landscape character, amenity, built cultural, natural heritage value, or infrastructure. So the slide 3 just gives you an aerial imagery of the site. Again, I've tried to roughly outline it in red on the ground makeup of the site. So in the east you can see the farmland, and in the west you can see the woodland. So the key issues identified by officers are listed in paragraph 4.4 of the report, and members are invited to either confirm those or identify any further planning issues they'd like to see addressed as part of any future planning application which may come forward.
Steph, thank you for that. We've had applications similar to this before. Have any members got any questions for Ms. Porter? Councillor Melville, we'll start with yourself.
Thanks very much, Convener. And thank you, Stephanie, for that. In the report at 3.3, it states that they've advised that they're going to carry out an in-person engagement event, and it says carry out additional consultation activity. Something that I was concerned about was what is the applicant going to do to reach people who are sort of not on the internet, because there will be people who will be interested in this application who maybe don't have the facility to log into a Teams meeting or find out online. So it was really a procedural thing. What can we do as a council to make sure that applicants get out to everybody who would be interested in this proposal?
So as you mentioned, there is an in-person event that members of the public can attend. So that's the alternative to the online requirements for their website and for the online event. So that meets the legislative requirements at this stage. But obviously, if possible, we would encourage them to kind of go beyond that. But as I said, the in-person event would be the alternative to the online communications.
You happy with that, Councillor Melville?
Yeah, thanks very much.
Okay. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Stephanie. Can I, just in terms of what my colleague said earlier, for clarity, 4.4, and if we go to the bullet point, which is on my screen, fourth from the bottom, there's just a bit, Stephanie, about site decommissioning and restoration. Now, this is one of the things that we've known over the years that people are very concerned about. Could you just maybe tease that out a wee bit so that everybody understands just what you mean? I'm not telling my granny to suck eggs here. I think it's maybe just important. Thank you.
It's fine. So there is a policy requirement for sites to be restored. So in this case, there is agricultural land and a mix of forestry. So as part of any future application, we would consider impacts upon the decommission of the development, and in most cases we would generally seek a bond to be put in place which would ensure that should the development cease to operate and the developer, say for example, went bust, there would be that provision in place that we could draw down those funds and ensure that the decommission in the site was cleared and restored to its former nature, should, like I said, should the development cease.
Good, thank you for that. We want to Councillor Brace.
Yes, at previous applications involving solar farms, etc., I think we've had a lot of concerns raised by members of the public about battery storage and fire risk that it may cause. I don't see any in the paper about battery storage, but if that was part of the planning application, I would be looking for good solid information about that, about the fire risk and mitigations.
Yeah, that's something that we could relay back to the applicant.
Good. Okay. Councillor Dorn.
Hi, thank you. Mine again is just a matter of clarification within what's covered under the bullet points that are noted in the document. And I just wanted to confirm that there be assessment of any trees on the site, as forestry has been noted. And I think that's covered within the bullet points, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, as far as I understand, quite a lot of the woodland on the site is plantation woodland. However, I do believe there may be issues, well, areas of ancient woodland, but that's obviously something that we would assess as part of the application process.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. Is there anyone else got any other questions? I don't see any other hands at the moment. If not, I think what we have to do here is to note the key issues at 4.4 and everybody had comments to advise on that. So is this the planning application noted?
Noted.
Noted.
Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, we can move on to agenda item 10, which is another PAN, this time for land 750 metres northeast of Garth Farm, again at Kirriemuir Road, Forfar. And Stephanie, I think you're dealing with this again?
Yeah, so item 10, it might look slightly familiar. This PAN relates to a major housing development incorporating 25% affordable homes, open space and landscaping at land at Garth Farm, Turfbeg, Forfar. So similar to Alan's slide that you showed earlier today, this is the Forfar's proposal map extract from the local development plan. The application site here is located in this white area of land indicated with the cursor. As you can see, it's currently not allocated, and it's out with but adjacent to the development boundary, which is indicated by the thick black line here. It's adjacent to the allocated housing site, which is identified by the brown hatched F3 allocation, and that's the Turfbeg development, which is currently approved and under construction. So this slide here just shows the application site outlined in red. It measures roughly 30 hectares and comprises of open farmland. As Alan had previously mentioned earlier this morning, it has been subject to a previous planning application for 245 dwellings, which was refused by the DPEA in August. The applicant's agent's been advised that following the legislative requirements of the PAN process, a new planning application for the site cannot be submitted prior to the 22nd of November. And the existing Strathmore Fields development is indicated with the kind of white plots and the green open space to the east here. And as Alan had previously indicated, the development boundary of Forfar is kind of roughly in the area of this green strip that intersects the centre of the drawing. So as previously noted, the site is out with but contiguous with the development boundary, and local plan policies only allow development in such locations where there is a public interest and social, economic, environmental and operational considerations confirm that there's a need for the proposed development that cannot be met within the development boundary. So in the case of any future application which may come forward for this site, issues relating to housing land supply and the availability of other housing sites is going to be crucial in the assessment of any future application. So this slide, the site, as you'll note, it clearly predates the recent construction works at the Strathmore Fields development, which is roughly in this area, and the application site is roughly here, and it just gives you an indication of the agricultural nature of the application site. So other policies that are of particular relevance are those that relate to residential development, those which seek to safeguard the landscape setting of towns, protect prime agricultural land, achieve a high standard of design, and ensure a good residential environment is provided for any future occupants of any development. So again, the key issues identified by officers are listed in paragraph 4.7 of the report, and members are invited to again confirm those or identify any further issues they'd like to see addressed as part of any future planning application which may come forward.
Thanks, Steph, again for that. Again, members of the committee would like to ask any question in relation to this potential pan of Ms Porter. Councillor Brays.
Yes, thanks, convener. And if this is an inappropriate question, please, you and your officers slap me down for it. But would it be appropriate to ask the developer to carefully consider the reporter's decision and his reasoning behind it relating to item 7 on today's agenda?
Yeah,
I think
so
before seconds come in on that one clearly, I think Councillor Brays, if from my point of view, it would make anybody with any sense would do that clearly, having had the copy of the refusal notice sent to him as well. So I think it would be common sense. Steph, go ahead.
yeah, so I think in the list of bullet points in 4.7, it does make reference to the DPA reporter's appeal decision. And I think in the kind of brief information that the developer has submitted as part of this application, they have acknowledged that decision, and they have suggested that they would aim to address those issues going forward.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm deliberately being brief and just really asking for clarification because there'll be a time and day. But insofar as, again, Stephanie, your bullet points, if I could come up to 4 from the bottom of your bullet points and go to flood risk.
Yes.
Now, flood, as my past experience tells me, I'm always concerned about flooding. We've just had flooding all over. Climate change is with us. So, yeah, the topography of any site makes a difference. I know that. But we have water that runs off fields and runs down roads from farmer fields and causes havoc. So, just really for clarification again, when we just say flood risk, what do you mean? Thank you.
So flood risk can relate to various different types of flooding, and it relates to flooding on the site and any potential increase to flooding elsewhere, which I think is maybe what you were suggesting. I think, as Alan previously advised, as part of the last application, there was consultation with SEPA in order to address that. Again, we would be consulting SEPA going forward and would be looking for any issues in terms of on-site flooding or flooding implications elsewhere to be addressed as part of any future application.
Can I just thank Stephanie, convener?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other hands for the council officer. No. Any further comments from anyone at all? Councillor Durno.
Thanks, convener. I just hope that the new design for this area is going to tick all the boxes this time, because we really need houses in Angus at the moment. We've got a real shortage of housing, and obviously we have to make sure that everything goes to plan. So I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, that when this comes back to planning again, that all the boxes will be ticked and we can get some new houses that suits everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dundle. Okay, if there's no other comments from anyone, we can't see any other hands. Does the committee then note the key issues at 4.7, having input all the additional comments? Is that all noted?
Noted.
Noted.
Good, thank you everyone. Well, that's, as far as my agenda is correct, that's the last item today. So short and sweet, thank you for your input, and we'll meet again at our next meeting. Thank you. I'll just close the live stream and close the meeting. Thank you everyone indeed.